guys, how are you today? So, just taking a drive. Yesterday we went to the fair. I took some pictures, but we didn't get to vlog or do anything like that because it was kind of hectic. We were supposed to go and see like all the animals and stuff that we would at a state fair, and they were apparently moving them even though there's like days left. It's nowhere near done. They were moving a bunch of them. So they had all of the sheep and the goats, the chickens, the bunnies, the two of the three like main cow buildings, they were all closed. So we could see like one building of cows and then like some of the horses. Most of them were in the ring and showing and stuff like that. So we couldn't see most of them either. But it was crazy. So yeah, we basically went there. You know, it's like $50 for 3 adults to have gone. And I took my 2 little girls. And yeah, it was like we couldn't do half the stuff. We planned to just like introduce them to all of the animals, and we couldn't do like 90% of it. So it was a little like flustered. I was a little flustered because it was just a lot of like long walking because all these buildings were like shut off. You couldn't walk through them at all. So, you know, the little one was like, why can't we look in there at, you know, the piggies or whatever? So it was like, oh my goodness, I tried to explain that to her. So yeah, it was a lot. And then I felt kind of bad because my grandmother went with us, and she was really excited to show the little ones like all the animals for the first time, and she didn't get to do like 90% of her plan. So then it was kind of like, oh well, what do you want to do? And you know, she's like, well, I don't know, what do you want to do? It was a lot of that. So I felt really bad because like, you know, she didn't get to do a lot of what she wanted. So I hope she still had fun. I was alright. My PTSD got a little like disheveled when it was like everybody kind of not sure what to do for a little while there. But it was okay and snapped out of it. And I'm gonna go back in the lane I just left. Anyways, so other than that, it went pretty smoothly for the most part. Just got to enjoy walking around and, you know, had a nice time. We went and saw this, like, they have healing stones, and then they have magnetic healing jewelry. Both, I think, work really, really well, especially the magnetic, it's like magnet power, triple magnet power jewelry. They're fantastic. They really help, like, joint pain and circulation. It helped me quite a bit, so that's something to consider. But yeah, so we looked at all that kind of stuff, and we had fun. It was just not what we thought it would be, you know, which was sad. I wish you could have seen a little bit more. They had like a discovery building, but it had like a cow in it, and then like one little thing of like a couple of goats, or a couple of sheep, excuse me, and then like 2 chickens, 2 adult chickens in a thing, and that's kind of it. So I was like, you know, we didn't get to go through barn after barn. And like I said, the one cow barn was partially open, and she had to see a couple of the horses. So she was excited. My daughter Riley, this is she I'm referring to. She was excited about that. And then the little one was perfect, the youngest, Reagan. She like didn't make a fuss or a peep or anything. So it was a lot though. It was a lot because, like I said, it was barn after barn closed. It was like, well, that's kind of what it's about. So I felt bad. So I'm gonna try to see what I can do to maybe do something nice for my grandma for kind of not getting to do 90% of what she wanted to do in there, you know. And I'm a little sunburned, as you can probably see. Not bad though. I don't tan at all. Like, I burn and then get white again. Yeah, so we are gonna have a nice day today. I just wanted to check in and do a short chit-chat kind of video again. Just get some basic stuff off of my mind. But the real reason I really wanted to chit-chat today is because, as I've lightly hit on here before, my grandparents raised me, and they're amazing. I owe them everything. I love them. They're my parents. My dad left before I was born, as I've lately said before. And then, yeah, my mom had me when she was 17, and she just, you know, was young and whatever, and she has many other kids. And my biological dad, now that I'm older, he's, you know, for a very short amount of time been someone I can look at on Facebook. So I know he has other kids and whatever else, so they do their own life, and I've got mine with my grandparents, and I love them very much. But I saw my biological mom at the fair. I saw her with two of my siblings. I know for sure it was one of my siblings, one of my sisters, half-sisters, I should say. But the other one, I believe, was my other little sister. I didn't get to see that one's face. And, you know, it was weird. I was, in the moment, very fine walking by and seeing her. But then as I think about it, like today being the next day, I don't feel as secure in it as I did yesterday. Like yesterday I was fine and felt fine about it, but today I kind of feel like, oh, like, man, I saw my mom, and she's not my, you know, mom, my biological mom, and it was just like, ugh, man, I'm so glad I didn't talk to her. So, like, in the moment I was like, oh, well, you know, she's not necessarily the most compassionate person at all, and she's not necessarily the nicest person, so I would have just said hi to her to, you know, kind of show her it didn't bug me. That's kind of where I was thinking that day. And now today I'm like, man, I would probably really regretted it, because I haven't talked to her in many, many, many years, and I never, ever want to again. I just feel like she's too heartless of a person to allow back in my life. And she's not happy if anyone else is happy without her. She's the type of person that wants people to rely on her, wants everyone to have a certain image of her, and if they don't, or you don't, she wants to ruin that. She doesn't like someone going to somebody else for help or for anything. She doesn't like people being happy if it wasn't caused by her, and if she wasn't in control of it. And that's really hard to be around, because she likes to sit there and be untruthful and tear people apart and make people turn against each other, and that way they're all going to her. And once that was seen and whatever, like, now that I'm not trying to have any type of relationship with her, my life is amazing. I'm able to be happy and healthy. I've got things on track the way I want them to be, you know, 2 children who I love, who are doing good. My depression's way better. It's really turned around and come a long way now. So it was, you know, it was hard to see that and to be like, wow, you know, I don't know, it just brought up a lot of emotions. Like, okay, well, you know, I thought I was gonna be fine and fine seeing her, and I was essentially in the moment, and then it was like, oh, like, wow, just leaves like that bitter taste in your mouth, essentially, from just how she is. But luckily she didn't say anything. And we were like looking at the horse barn, and I saw her walking in. We walked in, we looked at 1 or 2 of them, because we had one in earlier as well, but my daughter wanted to look at the horses again, because she's like me. So we were going back in, and then my grandma's like, oh, let's just go to the next barn, because she didn't want to talk to her either. So it's like, thank you. You know, I'm so very, very fortunate that everybody was on the same page with that. But I kind of just wanted to get on here and vent for a moment, because it was hard, you know, it's somehow hard for me to deal with right now for some reason. But it is what it is, you know, nothing I can do about it, and it went as smoothly as possible. It just brought up a lot of feelings from childhood, and now that I'm a parent, it's like those things sting a little worse. I thought it'd be like, oh, well, I could understand more why she did what she did and why she was the way she was, and she's just kind of a bad person morally and emotionally. But these things, and they were unspeakably cruel and heartless. And you know, I always thought like the worst thing ever was my biological dad leaving before I was born. And now it's like, no, it's better to have just left and not talk to me than to never be there, never be around, but then to claim, to try to claim something over you, or be shady, or just call once a week and, you know, drive a wedge in there because, you know, she can. And she did that when I was like 13, 14. She wasn't a part of anything, but she'd call, and because she was biologically my mother, she would just, you know, like to start shit. So she'd call, and she wasn't even seeing me, hanging out with me. She'd just drive a little wedge in there, you know. And then my grandparents would be like, oh, well, teenagers are all bad, right? And it was just a mess. So now that that's gone, it's just nice to be an older adult now and to be in a healthier place because I've cut ties there. So yeah, it just made me really think about a lot of stuff from my childhood and brought back a lot of memories and everything else. But it is what it is, I guess. I just felt like I should use this as an outlet to kind of vent when I'm having a bad moment. And, you know, my big thing here is that I want people to not feel alone, and I want people to feel like they have somewhere to turn and talk to people. So I guess it would be hypocritical if I didn't. To give like a little summary of things, just to sum up the type of person she is. When I was 2 years old, my mother, biological mother, met this man she ended up marrying. She moved in with him, and she had taken me, I was like 2.5 at this point. She took me with her, and well, she would drop me back off at my grandparents and then pick me up super late at night and bring me back super early in the morning. And that's kind of how she decided, well, you know, she didn't want to do that, so then she just basically gave me to them and let them take me on as theirs, because she didn't want to do the back and forth. She wanted to be with this guy, you know, she's whatever, 19, 20 years old at this point. And so that's ended up just full-time being there, rather than her, you know, picking me up for a couple hours, you know, to sleep not even 8 hours and go back. She didn't have time for me, which is fine. It is what it is. But we were there. I stayed with her for about a week or 10 days, and I remember vividly they had this little bed where you could put like dolls and toys and stuff in the back headboard. And I remember sitting there and every night writing, like, trying to, like, not write because I was too little to write, but, like, color on little papers and putting them in there. And, like, they were my wishing papers, and I was hoping to get out of there and be somewhere else, go back with my grandparents. So I was very glad that she gave me up and went on her merry way very shortly after. But I only stayed there, to get to the point, I only stayed there for 7 to 10 days, 7 to 10 nights. Spent all the days by my grandparents, and then she gave me to them. Well, then when I was 13 years old, I went and wanted to stay with her for a little while. So I had horses, and we went out every day, once to twice a day. My grandparents, my grandma and I would go out by my horses, and we would do whatever. Well, I remember I went there and went to stay with my mom, and it was just, I was on this little air mattress that didn't have like even a blanket on it, so it was freezing, you know how that is to sleep on. And I was in the room with my baby sister at the time. She wasn't even 1 year old, and it was just very hectic and not a comfortable, nice situation at all to be in. And it had been 6 days, and I said I don't want to miss a week by my horse, and my mom wouldn't take me, so I called my grandma and she took me back. Well, then, now that it was many years later, I was in like my mid-whatever, like I was 13 at that point, I was in my mid-20s, I was probably 20, so that's, I don't know why I was going to say mid-20s, that's not true. I was like 20 years old, and sorry, I'm trying to get over here. My mom was telling a story, and she's like, oh, well, I did try to take you when you were a little older, and then I had you when you were little. And I was like, very briefly, you know, you lived with my grandparents until I was 2, and then you left. She's like, oh, well, I took you, you know, for a little while then, and then a little while when you were 13. And I heard her say to someone, I must have had her for like, you know, 6 months between both of those times. It's like, Mom, you didn't even have me for 1 month between both of them. I literally had to go back, get my grandparents, who they both were like, Sarah, which is my mom's name. Like, you barely had her at all. Like, you didn't even have her 2 weeks the first time, and she stayed 6 days because she refused to miss 7 full days by her horses the second time. At the most she had me was 16 days on her own total through my whole life. But she sat there and made it seem like it was half a year, and she tried, and she was absolutely lying through her teeth about it, which it's just unbelievable. And then, you know, she just wanted to make herself seem better. And literally we talked to the stable owner at the place I kept my horse at. This was, like I said, like 10 years later or something that I went there, 7 years later, and I was like, how long did I miss that one summer? You know, do you remember? And they were like, yeah, you missed like 5 or 6 days because we were sitting there wondering why you were gone for almost a week, and then sure enough you showed up. Like, they even remembered because it was so odd for me to miss time. But it's like, you know, in her head she tried and she was there, and it's just hurtful because it's like, as a kid I remember being like, wow, you know, it was hard to be away from my grandma when I was a super little kid. Like, she met the guy when I was 2.5, so we might have even have just turned 3 when we moved in by the guy my mom was seeing. But I remember it being awful and hating it, and they were constantly fighting, and then he'd come back and buy candy bars, and it was okay then because he said sorry and you should forgive him and blah blah blah. And I remember that so distinctly and hating it so badly. And I remember specifically everything about it, and it wasn't even 2 weeks. And my grandparents remember everything about it because they know how many days they had to drive to, you know, my grandparents would sometimes drive to help her if she didn't want to drop me off. My mom didn't want to drop me off and pick me up, so they know how many days as well. And she didn't even have the job that she claimed she was working forever. She didn't even have it for 2 months, so how could she have worked that job and picked me up for 6 months, you know? It's like, she just loves to seem better than she is. And I know I'm a flawed person and I have a lot I need to work on, but it's just so hurtful to be like, as a kid, you know, I was scarred. I was like, man, my mom hasn't, you know, she's had me at most 16 days of my life, you know, to herself, and she really kind of gave up and didn't try. She was arguing and yelling with this guy she liked the first time around, and then the second time around it was just a hot mess, and it was a lot of going and doing a bunch of useless stuff, and didn't get any, like, I don't know, time to get to know me, I guess. Like, she would take me places with her and all, but there was no time to actually, like, get to know me or care about my interests, which I wanted so badly at 13, to have some sort of relationship with my, you know, my mom's beautiful, and she was young, and I thought she was so cool, and she wasn't at all. So it was just a really rough situation to be in. Then it's like, man, you know, just thinking back to how hurtful she was, and she just takes credit for things she didn't do and doesn't deserve to take credit on, and, you know, she never realized that. And I tried for a brief amount of time as a very, very young adult, like 18. I tried again to talk to her. I didn't live with her or anything, but I'd go over and we'd watch horror movies together, because I'm a horror movie fanatic. And we would watch them and talk and goof around, but she was trying to be my friend through that period, which is fine, but she was just wild and immature as well, which I was at that time and thought it was great. But thinking back to some of the things that she said or did, like, it was just really hard to know, you know, that's how she treated her daughter. So I don't know exactly where I'm going with this, but I just wanted to vent and talk about how, you know, how hard it can be to have to see somebody like that who's a big part of your life in a negative way and have to kind of like face them again. It was really awful. I didn't think it was going to be. You know, like I said, during it I was okay, but after, like, it brought up all these feelings and made me feel like junk. So I really wanted to get on here for a moment and vent, you know, and say, hey, this is what I'm feeling, and it's okay to let something fluster you and bother you. I guess it's okay to know that, you know, even this long time later, it still really bothers me to think about her and to deal with my emotions that I have for her, I guess. You know, it's really rough. So I guess if there is any point, one moment, if there is any point to this video, let it be that it's okay to let yourself get upset. It's okay to be flustered or admit that, you know, it still hurts years later. Even though it happened a long time ago, it bothers me, and it bothered me to see how she was, and she was still with at least the one sister I saw. All my siblings are younger, but she's probably, gosh, 21 now or turning 21. But it bothered me to see her. She was acting again like her friend or buddy, and I just know how she is. I'm not gonna sit here and badmouth her and say why she's harsh or just not supportive, but there were so many things I think she assumed, because she was kind of a sneaky teenager from what my grandparents have told me and what she told me. She kind of would sneak around and do stuff like that, and I was at, you know, 12, 13, you know, I was experimental and tried stuff and whatever, sure, but I was very upfront and honest and blunt and would talk about what I was trying and doing, and I don't think she ever saw that. She just assumed everyone was like her, so, you know, she wasn't getting the full story. And, you know, since she wasn't really there, she would drop off my siblings to be babysat sometime, and she'd come in and say hi, but she didn't ever sit down and, like, play with me or do anything like that, you know. Since it was at such a distance, all she'd do was sit there and, you know, tell my grandparents, well, remember, I was sneaking out, I was drinking, I was doing this and that at that age. And it's like, okay, that was you. Like, you know, and she would just say, well, I was lying through my teeth at that age. And it's like, well, that's great, but I wasn't. I believe in being honest and upfront and blunt, and I always was like that. So it's very hard, or it was very hard, because she just didn't care to listen or to get to know me or give me the benefit of the doubt. But anyways, like I said, I'm not going to get into the things that make her a bad person, in my opinion. Like, not going to say all of those type of things, because that's not my place, and, you know, she is how she is. But it was just still really crummy to see that she was still kind of being, you know, a kid and goofing off and playing around the same way. Like, yeah, I'm glad she was having fun, and I don't wish any ill or harm on anybody, but it's like, it brought up all those feelings of, you know, when I was 18, her just trying to be my friend, and I actually needed to talk or whatever it was, she definitely wasn't there. So I don't even know if I'm gonna post this for sure, but like I said, I think I should almost, because it's just good to vent and talk to people. So that's kind of what I'm feeling right now. So I love you guys, and I'm sorry this was a long, rambling, venting video. I hope you guys have a good day.